started here. We're super excited about this series. This is what we've got coming up. If y'all don't mind, make sure to mark your calendar. Our huge shred day is here at our offices on April the 20th from 8 to noon. There's a line usually backed up. You literally sit in your car. We unload it all for you. You can sit there and watch ArcLaTex shred it for you in front of you. And then if you have any type of electronics, hard drives, cell phones you want to get rid of, bring them. We partnered with Goodwill again this year, and they take them all, swipe them clean, and then of course if they can resell them, then they do that. So it's a great partnership that we have with Goodwill. We're so appreciative. Also want to thank our amazing sponsors, as well as our VIP sponsors. If y'all are ever interested in learning about different sponsorship opportunities, you can reach out to me. I'm your go-to gal. So let's go to the next. This is the one we're super excited about. This will be our first year doing the virtual trivia. It's going to be on May 7th from 2 to 3. My amazing CEO, Michelle, has hired a professional that does this for a living, so it should run very, very smoothly. There is, of course, QR codes to make it easy on anyone if they want to register. There's $500 first place prize, $300 second, $200 third, and then we're going to be doing virtual door prizes in between. So it's going to be fun. So y'all, you can also sign up as an individual if you don't have a team of 4. That's fine. We'll take you as an individual. It's just going to be fun. Super exciting about that. And again, thank you to our amazing sponsors for helping make that happen for us. And also, thank you to our Facebook Live friends for viewing. We appreciate you. And then here's just a list of our Lunch.Learn.Lead series. This one's interactive. If you go to the website, go to our events page, and all the events are listed there and made it easy for y'all to register. So we're super duperly excited about this. And again, to our VIP sponsors, y'all make sure to check out what all the VIP sponsorship includes. It's amazing. You're getting a huge amount of marketing and publicity for like half the cost. So, and today, I know the screen was kind of, I'm like, he's really more handsome than this picture. So, I just wanted to, let me read a little bit about Adam. We are super, super excited to have Adam back here with us. He did a great, great job last year. Thank you for that. Let me tell you a little bit about Adam Morrow. He is the Director of Sales and Recruiting for Express. Adam joined the Express team in 2011 after moving to Tyler from Lubbock, Texas. With years in the people business as a college minister, he brings a wealth of experience with and passion for people to his role at Express. It is such a privilege to intersect people at a point of need, whether they are business people or job seekers. I love having the opportunity to bring people together in these times to turn a time of need into an opportunity for success. Tell me that's not awesome. Let's welcome Adam Morrow.
You guys, and Rochelle, if you could make sure everybody
Yes, sir.
has one of these.
I got you.
And I'm assuming this is pretty straightforward.
Yes, sir. Just
And
arrow.
Got it. There's some really good filters on that camera, right? I need to brush it up. Okay. So I'm so excited to be able to share a little bit with you guys. Just listening to where everybody's from, I just got really excited to think about, isn't East Texas awesome?
Yes.
Like the community that we live in, and so I'm really excited to be here. As Rochelle said, I'm not from Tyler, but I married a Tyler girl, and so do you know how those East Texas kids are? They kind of boomerang sometimes and they bring somebody back. And so I'm really glad that we moved back here in 2011. And at that time, honestly, I had zero idea about recruiting or talent acquisition, as the whole industry is called now. And I don't know if you guys remember back in 2011, by the times were maybe a little different then, right? At Express, when I was working there, we'd open the doors and we had people flooding in to interview with us. And it's not the same as it is today. And so over the years, I've gotten a chance to learn from one of the best teams in the whole industry about building relationships with people and acquiring talent for your organization. So this is a little bit about Express and maybe, hopefully, why I might have something to offer you today. So Express in East Texas started in 1995. We're locally owned by Lucky Gill. And since that time, we've talked with over 17,000 businesses, and we've had over 100,000 job seekers come through our doors. And today, I was talking with Kathy a minute ago. Every week, we're interviewing around 200 people. And we had about 3,500 W-2s last year. So there's just a lot of people going on with Express. And in that time that I've been there, I've gotten to observe the really successful businesses and what they're doing well. And this is what our team is doing all day, every day, is talking with candidates and talking with businesses about what they need. And so what I'd like to do today is really just share with you some of the characteristics that I've seen of the best people, the best practices that we can see. And we place people in all these different areas, from light industrial to professional. So what we're going to talk about today will apply to a pet crematorium or a medical clinic or anywhere in between, right? So I have a question for you though. As you're here probably for a reason. One of the reasons is that the chicken salad's really good and that Rochelle's really persuasive and that we like to network. But you may have come with a question that's top of mind about recruiting. And so I'm curious if you have questions right now. I'd love just to hear from everybody. I want to write those down and make sure that as we go, I want to talk to you about what's important to you. So are there any top of mind questions about talent acquisition? Okay, that's okay. It's not your last chance to ask. And we're going to be having some conversations as we proceed so that we can learn from each other. Because I know some of you guys in here, and y'all are very experienced in the workplace, so you guys might have some things to share with the rest of us that will be really helpful. My goal is for you guys to leave with something that you could really actually use, like this week. And so I've given you a toolkit here of some of the things that we're going to talk about. And there's actually hard copies of these that I'm happy to get for you. Yes, sir.
Adam, I do have a question. I have a
Good.
mouth full of food, so
Understood.
it wasn't timely. So that you may speak to this, you talked about where things were, call it 10 years ago, where they are now. Seem to have, plenty of supply, and now we're begging for supply. So, and just so what, other than the pandemic or even with the pandemic, where do people go? Right?
Where did the people go?
Why did that change? So,
That's a great question. Where did the people go? We will talk about that. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay. Raise your hand if you think of yours. So you've got your toolkit here, and that's going to be our outline for what we're going to talk about today. A couple of things we're going to talk about at the beginning are not the easy things. They're the hard things, but the good things. So it's for example, it's like if you had a goal or I had a goal to lose weight, then you can bet whatever solution we talk about is going to have something to do with what we eat and how much we exercise, right? You can't really get around that, and there's a lot of different ways to talk about it and different plans, but some of those, you're going to be talking about those categories. And so I'm going to start with a couple of those kinds of categories that have to do with who you are as a business in your recruiting. But first I want to tell you a quick story. Anybody here a hockey fan? Not one hockey fan. I'm not a hockey fan either. But I have a good friend who, for some reason, he's from Dallas, Texas. Short guy, not very athletic. He loves hockey. I don't know why. He actually ended up being the chaplain for the Dallas Stars. And so you guys might remember back in the 90s, the Dallas Stars were pretty new. So there's kind of a buzz about this whole ice soccer game thing that's going on. And they were making a run to the Stanley Cup. And so there was a lot of buzz in the Reunion Arena where they were playing. Same place that at the time the Dallas Mavericks played. And my friend, this was before he was the chaplain, but he was at a game there, and he was telling me the story about how the fans were getting so excited. It was a tie match between Dallas and somebody else, and they were coming toward the end of the third period, and it was pretty intense, and the crowd was roaring, and right at an opportune time, an extra boisterous fan turned around to his section and said, "Hey, everybody, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, we're going to do the wave." And he didn't understand why everybody looked at him weird. But that's because in hockey, there are only 3 periods. It's the only sport like that where there's not halves or quarters, there's 3 periods. And so he didn't realize, like, he was standing up right at the last seconds of the game, yelling about the fourth quarter. And so to the point that we've already discussed a little bit, if the rules change and you don't realize it, then you can get embarrassed, right? You can be disappointed. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how, because of things that are outside of our control, some of the rules of recruiting have changed. And if you know what to do, then it should help you, okay? So the first step that we want to talk about today is to know who you are. The beginning of recruiting is to know what kind of business you are, what's important to you. You gotta know what your brand is. And that might sound a little weird to talk about recruiting and all of a sudden talking about what your business is. But let me say this, the reason that's important is that for your organization, you need people who are aligned with you to be successful, right? So they need to be aligned with your vision of what you're trying to accomplish, with the values that you think are important. And so if you don't know what those are, you're gonna have a hard time hiring people that fit that. And so the more clarity, the greater clarity that you have around your vision and values, the better that you can align your recruiting to that. And then the more aligned that your recruiting and hiring process is to your values, the better results will be, right? Because you may just feel like, I just need a body, but the truth is you don't need just a body, right? You need somebody that's gonna fit your business and help you. And so I'll give you a great example of this. There's about a mile from here, there's a software company called the Genesis Group. Have y'all heard of that company?
Very active in the community.
They are active in the community. A very successful organization. They're flourishing as a software company in the middle of East Texas, where they're the only kind of company that they do. So they can't just steal an employee from somebody else. And they have aligned their recruiting and hiring process around their values. So if you apply with them to be a software engineer, yes, there's going to be some technical questions, but that's at the very end of the interview. The very first questions you're going to get have to do with, are you hungry? Are you humble? Are you smart? That's the kind of people they're looking for, right? So they've understood who they're looking for. They understood this is who we are, and they've crafted their interview and recruiting strategy to be aligned with that. And that has helped them be very successful. Their retention rate is fabulous, and they do some other really good things there too. So that's what we all need to do, is think about who we are and how we can get this recruiting process aligned with that. And so how do we do this? Well, if you're a leader in your business, it's your job to do this, to create clarity around who you are. If you're not doing this, then it's going to come out somewhere, and it's not going to be what you want. And so the leader's job is to create clarity. If you want to recruit that ideal team player, you got to start by defining what that ideal team player is. And so my question to you would be, what is your definition of an ideal team player for your business? And then how is it reflected in what you're doing to hire people? This is what you need to do as a leader. And the very first thing you have to do is just answer some questions about your business. Why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? How are we going to succeed? What's the most important thing for us right now in our business? And who in our organization does what? And then once you've created that clarity as a leader, then you need to over-communicate it. And I don't know if any of you guys are leading people in your business, but maybe you feel like, didn't I just say this? Like, why am I always repeating myself? Well, if you feel like you're repeating yourself, that's good. You can't say this stuff too much. I know I've learned this as a husband. I've been married 25 years last December, and I remember at some point in my marriage, I was like, well, I told you I loved you, like, when we got married. I'll tell you if it changes. Maybe you need to hear it again. That's just how our employees are. They need to hear this and be reminded about it, right? The Mercy Ships is an organization up in near Van, just north of I-20. They have a great vision to bring hope and healing to the forgotten poor. And that is what aligns everything they do. And they say that all the time. So whether you're sweeping the floors there, or have some kind of technical job, or whatever you're doing, what I am doing is contributing to this, what we're about. This is the start of good recruiting. Is because you have to create what you're about so you can identify who you need to get and invite to your team. A couple of resources that I would point you to if you want to spend some more time thinking about this. One, there's a couple of really great books, both by Patrick Lencioni. One's called The Ideal Team Player, and one is called The Advantage. The Ideal Team Player it's an allegory, so it reads like a novel, but it illustrates how one company learned they needed to identify what an ideal team player was, and that's what they needed to communicate to their employees. And then the other The Advantage is about how the single best competitive advantage any organization has is to be a healthy organization, right? And it doesn't matter that seems obvious, but that's why he made millions of dollars writing that book. So if you're a water company, you could be a healthy water company or a not healthy water company. Which one's going to be better? The healthy one, right? And so we at Express, we've used that book, The Advantage, to organize our answer to all these questions, and it helped us. So I would highly recommend that. If you're looking for something that's more of like just give me the cheat sheet to all this. I don't really want to read 2 books. Then Express has a cultural development kind of cheat sheet. And it's going to kind of step you through questions to ask and then how to implement them. And this is very implementable. I'm happy to provide these to anybody who wants them, and you're going to get my contact information. And so reach out to me and let me know, I want one of those, and I'll make sure that you get one. So those are some really great resources around this. Any comments or questions about who you are? Okay, maybe I'm doing a good job, I don't know. So the next thing you got to work on after you know who you are is to keep who you have. And by this point you might be asking, I thought we were talking about recruiting. Why are you talking about retention? Well, it's the same thing as in any business. How much does it cost to get a new customer versus keep a customer? Do you know that? It costs between 5 and 25 times more as a business to get a new customer than to keep one you have. Well, here's the thing that we need to learn as employers in this era, is that your employees are your customers. And it is way cheaper to keep an employee than to go get another one. And so that's the reason number 1 that you'd want to do this. And then the reason number 2 would be, I didn't put it on there, so I'm keeping you guessing. You want to become the place that people want to work. Because that's going to be a future step on how we're going to attract people. But you want to become a talent magnet, and that starts by having people that like to work for you. So that you can answer the question, why would somebody want to work for you? Right? You need to answer that question. And so this is how you do it, and it requires some intentionality. Again, these are not easy things to do. You can't just like immediately have all this together, but you can start every day by doing some of these things. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your employees know these questions, okay? And the first two, we do a fairly good job of answering. What am I supposed to be doing? So most of the time we're telling them, do this, do this, do this. How am I doing at that? We do a less good job of that sometimes, but okay, most of the time we're telling them, especially if they're not doing well, that they're not doing well. But they need to know how they're doing. And then, especially these days, employees need to know what are my next steps. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but there was a time when you went to work for a company and you were glad to be there and you just worked and you had no expectations of going anywhere else for 25, 30 years. But that's not now. And so our generations in our workplace now are thinking about what's next. They're thinking about that in the first week that you're hiring them, if not in the interview process. And so they need to know the answers to those questions. So this is just a way to illustrate that. This is some statistics on engagement in the workplace. And so I know you can't read these little blurry lines at the bottom, so I'll describe this to you. Those two small slivers we're going to talk about in just a minute. The blue one is people that are not working. The dark purple is people who might be working on a contract basis or through an agency like Express. So that's kind of its own category, and that's 2% of the population. And then the rest of these are measured by how engaged are you at work. Okay, so 15% of people are actively disengaged at work. Actively disengaged. So what that means is they're not just not engaged, but they're trying to not do what they're doing. So picture like if you have a row team, this is a person in the back of the boat that's rowing the opposite direction. Okay? So this is somebody who, they don't give a flip with the consequences if they don't do what they're supposed to do. They're probably actually looking for a job on the clock. I learned recently that right now, the most popular time to look for a job on Indeed is Monday at 10 a.m. That's those people that are looking, okay? So then 42% of people are not engaged at work. And so you can be engaged and not engaged, and any individual can go back and forth in these categories, but at any given time, 4 in 10 are not engaged. That doesn't mean that they are angry about anything, but for whatever reason, maybe there's a lot going on in their life, maybe they're bored with their job, maybe they're stressed, they're not connecting, they're not really engaged, they're not all in. These people are not necessarily actively looking for a job, but if somebody said to them, hey, would you be interested in something? They would listen. So these people they're open to a new job. And then you have the people that we hope everybody is, but that's 37%. Those are the people that are actively engaged. So statistically speaking, if you have at least 10 people in your organization, you have one of these. If you have less than 10, you might have to have a half a person be actively disengaged or something like that. So we all have this, and every one of these levels of engagement, we need to be thinking about what is their next step. Okay? So if they're engaged, these are the people that you need to develop. You need to develop them. They're wanting to know, I'm in with this mission, how can I grow here? And if you don't, they're going to find somewhere else to go. If you allow these people to just stay like they are, or if these people get all your attention, the not engaged, the actively disengaged, and you ignore the engaged people, they're going to leave. So the most important thing you can do, if you want to think about strategic talent acquisition, is to develop your good people. You need to spend most of your time there. If they're not engaged, you need to think about how can they be engaged? How can I draw people in? How can I lean in to the people that I'm working with. And if they're actively disengaging, you need to find them and help them find a job at your competitor, right? You don't want these people on your organization at all, because it's going to grow that percentage the longer they're there. So we have to answer these questions, and then we also need to ask ourselves, why would somebody want to work for me? We'll learn here in a minute that every good person that you're looking for is most likely working somewhere. If you're trying to hire them, they're working somewhere. So they have a choice. So why would they want to work for you compared to where they are now? That's the frame of mind that they're going to be in. And something that hopefully is encouraging, yes, pay matters. And we've experienced some crazy wage inflation in the last year or two, and hopefully that's easing off a little bit. But development matters more. The number one reason that people stay at a job is not the pay. It's there's opportunity for me to grow. So think about that. That's the number one reason people stay. And so if that's the number one reason, what are the opportunities where you are? And you may be a really small business. You know, at Express, when I started there, we had like 13 people. And we've grown since then. We have about 30. We're still a small business. We didn't have like junior recruiter and then recruiter 1 and then recruiter 2. We didn't have this like whole little ladder that somebody could climb. And so when we first started, we were like, man, you could come grow with us and you'll have the same job title in 10 years. Just like me. And that, you know, for whatever reason, that wasn't that attractive. And so we've had to work hard to think about what can I encourage them to develop and create a step for them. And it's a win-win. I want you to do this, so I'm going to create a step around that, and we'll celebrate the progress that you made. But that's an important answer to that question. So one good tool for this is doing something called a stay interview. So we're making time to interview new people, but are you making time to interview the people you want to stay? So I have a copy here, and I can send this to you, of some questions that you could ask a current employee on to stay with your company. Or maybe 10 questions, and it'll get your kind of creative juices flowing about what would work for you. I didn't realize it at the time, but my boss, Rocky Gill, has done this. He called it, Tara, the semi-annual lunch. Did you ever do one of those?
I think maybe my first year.
Okay. I don't know if that should tell you something or not, but just kidding. Tara's like top of the nation in what she does. But you want to sit down with them and ask them, what's the best part about your job? You know, what part of your job would you cut immediately if you could? Have you ever thought about leaving? What would make you consider that? What are your talents that you are good at that you're not using in our organization that maybe we could use? And ask them some to give you some feedback. As a manager, what's effective and what's not effective about how I'm leading you? It takes some vulnerability to ask that. So don't ask that if you don't want to hear what they have to say. But planning to do a stay interview with your best people will keep you from having to go put an ad on Indeed and start that process all the way over again. Have you guys experienced anything at a place where you've worked or in your current role where that made you want to stay there? Yes.
I definitely have. I'm a nurse. I was a manager of the outpatient department at Adam Morrow. And I remember the vice president, she really took me under her wing, and we had those lunches, and we had those conversations, and it really did make a difference in my leadership and how I showed up. The fact that I felt like she was invested in me and really did care about the answers and supporting me and everything, you know, I would still be there if I did get sick and I had to move here, but yeah.
That's impressive.
Made a tremendous difference.
You ever been approached by a recruiter as a nurse?
Definitely.
I mean, like how many times today?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's right. When you talk about one of the most competitive positions in the country, nobody can get enough nurses. And so that was a leader that was investing in somebody they wanted to stay, and it made a difference. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing. This is maybe a little more towards what you might be expecting from this conversation. Where do I look? Okay, I know who I am and who I want to attract to my organization. I'm doing everything I can to keep my good people. I have an opening. Where do I look? And so your job as a leader is to build a pipeline of people heading in your direction. So let's bring this back, this slide back up again. And told you I was going to talk about those two little slivers, right? So you remember, this is actively disengaged, not engaged, engaged. We have unemployed, and so our current unemployment rate nationally is 3.8%. And then you have people that are working on a contract basis. And so you're going to do a job post. I'm curious what boards you guys use. And raise your hand if you've done a job post at your job, like you posted a job somewhere. Okay. So how many of you guys are using Indeed? ZipRecruiter? Somewhere else? Where else are you guys posting?
Red Balloon, we also have it posted at the Hispanic
HVAC.
HVAC Society.
Good.
We have it posted on our webpage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Good.
We have it posted at CMDA. We also have it in LinkedIn.
Okay. Mr. Terry's killing it over there. Have you posted somewhere else?
Just all the main boards, and
Yeah.
we have people that do this, but UT Tyler was the one that stood out for me, that I intentionally, let's get on that board.
Yeah.
People going back to college, maybe
Right.
later in life.
So you're using Handshake to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's something that almost all of us will do at some point. We're going to post a job, and that's a good thing to do. We need to do that. Who is applying to those jobs on this chart?
The disengaged.
15%.
You're looking at this group right here, right? Maybe one of these, but they're mostly not looking. So you're fishing in this pond. What are you gonna get when you fish in that pond, right?
Discouraging us.
Yeah. That's right. The pickings are gonna be slim, okay? So the question is, how do we fish in this pond right here, right? This is where we want to be fishing. And so how do we do things to get these people? We got to still do this, because you're going to get people that are relocating here to the #1 city in Texas to live in, Tyler, Texas. And so you can catch some that way, but it's better fishing over here. So let's talk about how we do that. So relationships are better than job posts. So it's not that job posts are bad, but relationships are better. The problem is relationships take time. There's no shortcut to relationships. And so this is something that these are some questions we need to be asking ourselves now before we have an opening. We need to be asking this. If we wait to start asking these questions when we have an opening, we've waited too long, right? And so who knows the people? Who do you know that knows the people that you want to know? Who do you know that knows the people you want to know? Those are the people you need to know. Follow me? Okay. So you mentioned UT Tyler. That's a great place to start, even in the high schools. Tomorrow, I believe, in Tyler, there's a job fair at the Career Technology Center. Other school districts do that as well. You can't get in the recruiting pipeline too early. And you got to be thinking of the long game. If you know that you're going to be hiring in the next few years, you need to find a way to spend some time getting familiar with that network of people who are going to be coming up into our community so they know you, even if you can't hire them right away. Be in places like this, right, where we can network with people and build relationships in the community so that when it comes time to be looking for somebody, you have a friend to say, Terry, I know you're in a whole different industry, but I'm looking for this kind of person. Who do you know that might be interested in that? people you know. Some other things you may not have thought about, industry vendors. You know, the best place to find a plumber, like who knows where a good plumber is the supply house, who sells to all plumbers. They know who the good ones are. So think about in your industry, who are those people that you're connected with that know the kind of people you'd be looking for. Think about like-minded businesses in other industries. So if you're a business that's hiring transferable skills, this would be applied to you. In my case, one of my jobs is internal recruiting for our team at Express. And we have identified, there was a restaurant for a time that was like the number one in its chain, and they were located here, and their training was really good. And we realized if we talk to somebody who's been there a couple of years, they're going to be good. And they have similar values, and they learn similar skills to what they would learn here. Tara Hayes came from that restaurant background. And so if you're able to find a place like that that's kind of in alignment with you, that might be a feeder for you, it's good to go ahead and think about that and circle that and build relationships there.
Oh, no.
Are we going to explode? Of course, a good recruiter, shameless plug, as somebody who knows somebody you want to know. And then
Sorry about that.
this is like the number one play, but don't think that you shouldn't do it. Employee referrals, especially for good employees. Good employees know other good people, and so you need them. Don't just ask them once. Remind them to be always thinking about who could work in your business. At our business, there's a standing order. Whether we have an opening or not, if you think somebody might be a fit for our business at some point in their career, I want to talk to them. Because I'm thinking 5 years down the road, I might want to call that person. And so I want to connect with them and see. Yes, ma'am.
Well, in Blakewater at our high school, the principal has set up an employee board. And so when one of my shops lets me know that they need help or a restaurant or something, I refer them to the principal. He takes all the information, he posts it on this board so that his students who are looking for a job have the opportunity to just go, glance, take the information, and go apply.
That's awesome. That's a great example of that kind of networking in the community. Kiara.
So I do have something to piggyback off of what you had spoke on. So being an educator at Lifestyle Lash Academy, we have different ethnicities that come into our school that want to learn how to do eyelash extensions. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I knew that we would be needing another instructor. So I had already been thinking, and Miss Lucretia had already put it in my head. So I was like, well, I don't know, because I take my job serious, and whoever we bring on, they need to take it as serious as I do.
That's right.
So I just was thinking, and then we happened to have a lady, her name is Sarai. She came and she enrolled in our program, and the first day she came, hands-on training, I was looking at her work and I was like, oh my gosh, she is good. Like, she was better than me when I first started. So I kind of just put it in the back of my head and just saved it there. And then once it got to the point to where we really needed another instructor, I pulled Miss Lucretia aside and I was like, hey, Sarai, I think she would be really good. But the thing about it is Sarai is Puerto Rican, so she is bilingual. And so now so we kind of talked about it, and once she graduated from our school and became licensed, I messaged Sarai and I was like, hey, I've been watching you. You didn't know that, but I've been watching you, and I would love to extend an opportunity for you to come work at the school. So fast forward, she accepted the position, and now we are starting our bilingual program at Lifestyle Lash Academy.
That is awesome. That's a great example.
Yes, and it really just, so the employee referrals, they really do. They matter, because if you're already a good employee working at a good business, you want to bring someone in just as good with the same morals, the same values, you know? And so I kind of knew exactly what Miss Lucretia wanted. She let me know. I seen the values in Miss Sarai, and to this day, she is amazing.
Oh, good. Thank you for sharing that story. Did you have something to say? No? No. Yes.
In
I'd like to say Sarai was interviewed by the Tyler paper, and the whole interview was in bilingual. And I'm sitting there looking at them back and forth. I'm like, I hope she's telling them that I'm nice to her. But I ended up asking them. I said, "Can I ask y'all what you said?" And she told me, but the main thing that she said was that this is the first place that she worked that she felt accepted for who she was as, you know, a bilingual.
Well done. That's good.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. That's great. All right. One other thing to think about is in a time when we're short on candidates, you got to be creative sometimes about where you look. And so think about what groups might be underutilized. So retirees and students are two groups that are underutilized. I know we created an internship program at our business for entry. Get some people in, some sharp young ones. We have 2 of them that we've hired through that program. It took some work for us. It takes some work to make a meaningful internship program that they want to do. That's been beneficial for us. And then think about people with barriers to employment, depending on their industry. So H-1B candidates. So these are people who are here on a student visa from another country. They have an opportunity to do optional training for up to a year, maybe 2 years. And then they'll need a business to sponsor them to stay. Now that it's the government, so there's bureaucracy, it costs a little bit of money. I've seen some businesses really get some amazing employees that way. There are some folks that are looking for part-time work. You know, is there a way that you could flex what you're doing to fit that need? There are people that might need childcare that maybe you have a way to work around that. People that need transportation. Or people who are caring for aging family members. So don't overlook somebody who's not looking that you're traditional and looking for a full-time job and a career. There are other areas that you need to at least explore because you can find people that are unfound in those areas. Does that make sense? Okay. So one thing that I have available to you is an article from SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, about 17 creative recruiting strategies. And I'm happy to send that to you if you're interested. This is the article printed here if you want to come look at it. And there's a couple of interesting things here. The first thing it talks about is just how's your application process? Is it a pain in the butt to apply with you? Because that could be, you want to eliminate any barriers to somebody coming and talking to you. So make that simple. It talks about creating not just employee referrals, but creating, I'm trying to think of what they called it in here, an internal ambassador. So what that means is incentivize them to share your job posts on their social media so that the people that they're connected with see it. So there's some really good examples in here. Awesome. All right, so we know who we are, we're keeping who we have, we know where to look, but now we need to know what we're looking at, right? Because sometimes we're looking out there and we're like, what is that even? I mean, and this goes to your question, sir, where are the people anyway, right? So we have to kind of understand what is our situation that we're dealing with here. Oh, here we are. I hid my notes for myself. Okay. So anybody ever heard the phrase, nobody wants to work anymore?
Yes.
Yeah? I think somebody was telling me that just today, right? Well, I just came across this recently. But these are headlines going back to 1894 where people say, nobody wants to work anymore. And so this is not a new thing. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying that every generation thinks the previous generation is not very good. The one that's coming up, they're not very good, right? And there's a reason for that we'll talk about. So we need to understand what it is that we're looking at here, because while we see something, like something's not right. If everybody thinks the same thing, then there must be something that we're looking at that we don't see. So let's look and see what that is, okay? So let's look at some statistics here. This is an unemployment rate going back to 2009. So here's me at 2011, where I started Express, right? So we were 4 or 5% unemployed, right? And then look at this unemployment rate. It's like historically low. Well, COVID, now we're back.
Yeah.
All right, so we're staying right here below 4% unemployment. So that means right now there are 6.4 million unemployed people in the United States. This is job openings, okay? So 2014, here's job openings. We had a huge spike in job openings, right? Here's COVID. Our economy is revving. We have a lot of job openings. And we're leveled out here. We still have a lot of job openings. Currently, 8.6 million job openings. I don't know if there are any math majors here, but which one of these numbers is bigger? Right? There are more jobs than people looking for jobs. That is the situation that we're in. And it's a demographic issue. So a couple things that will put some context into that. Economists say that when you have 4% unemployment, you're fully employed. So what that means is every good person who wants a job has a job. And those 4%, we don't really know what to do with them, right? So we are even higher, some of those people are working, okay? So if you're talking to an unemployed person, there are good unemployed people. But there's not a lot of good unemployed people, right? And there are a lot of jobs. And so those unemployed people, right now they have 1, 2 jobs they can choose from depending on what industry you're in. They have some choices, right? Now thankfully it's moderated a little bit. For a while there was 2, 3 jobs for every unemployed person. So those numbers are coming close together, but because of our demographics in terms of our country and the ages everybody are, I don't anticipate this truth changing anytime soon. That for the foreseeable future, there are going to be more jobs than really good people. So we need to let that inform our recruiting strategies. So this is the workforce by generations in the workplace. So we've got baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and now Gen Z, which is crazy because that's my kids. That makes me feel old.
Yeah.
So our economy, our HR processes, everything, the way that things work, were created by the baby boomer generation. These people know how to work, right? And they also lived in a time where you had a job and a lot of people to choose from, right? And so that's where the whole job posting thing and interviewing and narrowing down that interview pool to some special people, and that's where that came from. But this year, so this slide is from 2023. So this blue number is the Gen Z generation, people born, I think it's 2000 to 2012-ish. They are now more than baby boomers in the workforce. Okay, so that means the baby boomers are now the smallest generation in the workforce. So that's some significant change that we've experienced. So this, if we extended this line back, it would go up off the chart here, because thus the name of the generation is a baby boom. There are a ton of people in this generation, post-war. But here's the thing: we're not making a lot of babies anymore. We're not even replacing ourselves. So our birth rate is less than 2 in our country, and so we're not going to be growing except for immigration. So we're going to be making more jobs, but we're not making more people. Is what I'm trying to tell you. And the people in the workforce are a little bit different. Think about this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about generations. So we've got 4 in the workforce right now. And the key to understanding generations, there's a lot been made about this, right? And the poor millennials, they got hammered when they came in. But the thing is, if you want to understand people, you need to understand the circumstances they came from. And so these generational characteristics are just broad strokes, but they apply because that group of people was experiencing something in their formative age, right? And so if you're an older generation thinking bad about a younger generation, you helped create them. Okay? So we all got to take some responsibility here.
You can't say that, they get angry in psychology class. You can't say that. I'll fight you.
I know. That's a whole other seminar right there.
I've been in there with them, trust me.
So you're thinking about the things that formed these generations. Thinking about even, I'm in Gen X, right? So when I was born, we had a TV, you had to get up and turn the knob, right? And I was super pumped when I got an Atari 400. Where the cartridge went in there and we played Pong, right? So my kids, 2 generations later now, had like, when my son was born, we didn't have a real bedroom, so he was born, his crib was in the office. There was a computer in his room where his crib was, right? And we had cell phones. And when he was 7, the iPhone came out. So he's never known not digital. So the pace of change is driving the difference in generations. And so the faster that pace is, the more different generations are going to be. And so we have to realize that not every person born that's young is bad. But we have to understand where they're coming from and leverage what's good from that. So just a little bit about Gen Z. These are the people that are showing up in the workforce right now. So born 2001 to 2020 is what this says. So they're shaped after life after 9/11. So they've never known a world where you didn't have to take your shoes off at the airport, right? They had the Great Recession right there in their formative years. They have had access to technology from a very young age. One of my greatest regrets was giving my son an iPod when he got one. You know what I mean? So he had a little screen. Stupid mistake, right? So they're motivated by diversity, personalization, individuality, creativity. They've been able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Curate their own messages. Everything is targeted to them, right? If they don't like what it is, go find something else that's curated to them, right? So they've been able to create their own space. So communication style, social media, texts, IMs, they don't even probably say that. Some old person wrote IMs. That's right. But you know, that's right. That's right. And then their worldview, they self-identify as digital device addicts. So it's not so, if you just said you're addicted to your device, they'd be like, yeah, I am. They know it. That's right. And they value independence and individuality. They like younger managers. They like innovative coworkers. They like new technologies. This is, again, broad strokes, but these are the folks that are coming into the workforce. So the big words we need to think about. First of all, digital communication, right? So, you know, I thought texting was like the cutting edge technology, but my kids probably only text so they can talk to me, right? They talk to each other through whatever platform, right? WhatsApp or Snapchat or whatever it is. Even through their Xbox, they're messaging that way, right? So they've got their own area. That's the best way. Then text, then email, then phone, and then in person.
Yeah.
That's questionable. You know, not many will choose that.
Sure.
So another big word is well-being. That's a big word in our culture right now, right? So they're going to be looking for a company that cares about their employees. Now the good news is you don't have to be the top paying person to care about your employees. But like you talked about your manager that came and talked to you, I'm seen. I'm listened to. They care about me here. So that's a big deal. And we're more open to talking about mental health, right? And I know the boomers and some of the older Gen X are like, suck it up, buttercup. I mean, when I was at your age, we had to work hard and we didn't like it, but we did it anyway, right? Well, there's two sides to that. And there's some truth in there, but there's also some good things about talking about being healthy. They're open to that. They really want to be flexible. They want things customized. And this is huge, development. They want to grow. And sometimes they have some wrong ideas maybe because they're young. They don't have experience yet, but they want to be promoted, like 6 months should be their first promotion, right? So this is the thing we have to cultivate. So we want to learn this and then think about how can we leverage this, right? So if you want to be flexible, okay, well, I can give you flexibility, but this is what I need. If you do this, then we can have flexibility here, right? Take some time to communicate about how you're taking care of your employees. Last week, we launched a new benefit to our team where our company is paying for essentially chaplains for our people in our organization. We're a small business. There's a team that does this, and it's just a way to say we care about you because people are bringing crazy stuff to work, and that's going to affect their work. You say they can leave it at the door, but if you're broken at home, you're bringing it in the door, right? And then thinking about how you're communicating with folks. If you're trying to call them, you might try to message them. You might try to text them. If you're trying to these applicants that you're looking for. Okay, so a great resource for this is going to be. There's a book by Tim Elmore and John Maxwell called A New Kind of Diversity. It's a great book on this subject. And then there's a training that's actually free, and I think there's a couple spots left, that's presented by Express Pros Training on the 25th. I just realized that the little graphic I put on there is super tiny, but it's April 25th, which is a Thursday. And it's designed for C-suite people in a business. So if you know somebody like that, email here or email me, and I can put you in touch with them. But we got to do some studying on that stuff. And then finally, we got to craft a good process. I couldn't come up with another K word, so I just stuck a K there. And so you got to be better than your competition. Why? Because your competition is making a good process, so you got to do that, right? So how do you make a good process? So first of all, and this is kind of a review of what we talked about, you got to advertise and interview based on who you are, right? Why would somebody want to work for you? You need to lead with that. Don't lead with the thing you have to have or I don't want to talk to you. You need to lead with why do I want to work for you? The lens that is a good way to look through when you're hiring. First, hire for character, then competencies, and then chemistry with your team. So you can think about that and then communicate those ways. You want to create gravity by investing in who you are as an organization. If you start getting a buzz, like this is a great place to work, then you'll find that amazingly some good people kind of show up in your radar that you weren't even looking for, because word gets out that this is a good place to work. So you want to create you want your employees to be word of mouth advertisers for you, because they're just talking about their life at work. You want to diversify where you look. So think about where you're looking and think about whose job is it in your organization to always be looking. You need to have somebody that bangs the drum and reminds everybody to tell them about the people they know. Somebody needs this job that's doing it whether you have openings or not. And then leverage the things that are in the marketplace. Leverage what we're looking at. So think about how you can change your job structures maybe to fit what you're seeing in the marketplace. I would encourage you first to screen in and then screen out in your interview process. So don't look at a resume and then based solely on questions you might have on a resume, just decide I'm not going to talk to that person. You want to screen in for values, for character. It's easier to train skills than it is to train character, right? So if you find that right character and values, then see if there's a way you can train that. And then be expeditiously thorough. So what I mean is hurry up, but not too fast, okay? So you need a good process, but you don't want to take too long. You know, you don't want to, like, if they apply and you call them 2 weeks later, sorry about you. They moved on. You know what I mean? If they're a really good person, they're going to have a lot of options. And so a famous saying in business, time kills all deals. So I know in our hiring process internally, I think there's like 7 steps. But we try to be able to get that done within a week, all 7 of them. So that we go from introduction to we're making you an offer. If that's where that candidate is, we're able to do it that quickly. A great resource for this. Many of you might be familiar with Dave Ramsey, and he has an organization called Entree Leadership. And there's a great little article called the Entree Leader's Guide to Hiring. It's got some really good ideas in here that might just shake something loose in your head. And so if you want to come look at that, I'll leave that up here. And again, I'm happy to give any of this stuff to you that would be helpful to you. Any other questions or comments?
Where'd you
Yes, sir.
get that demographic data, that chart?
I literally went to BLS.gov, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So it's the government information. So I'm happy to send this PowerPoint out to anybody that wants it. And so my contact information is here on this sheet. So reach out to me. I'll provide any of this stuff that would be helpful to you. Thank you guys so much for